ideas with opposite castling. So a first and very basic type of position with literally several hundreds of games is this one. So bishop e3. This is a high-profile game. Alexei Shirov is playing with the white pieces, and Vasily Ivanchuk is playing with the black pieces. Let's see, e5 and knight b3. Usually for white, in order to go for long castling, he puts his knight on b3. And then he can continue either with h3 and g4, but mainly he plays f3 or f4 as an idea. So we see a bishop on e3. We don't really know yet whether our opponent is going to castle long or short. So we have to follow the principles. Bishop e6 is the most common move. As an exception, this move is playable here if you intend to play systems with both bishop e7 and bishop e6 very quick, very fast. 7 bishop e6, then you can start with even with bishop e7. So bishop e6 is played. So far, it is important to note that what should be our conclusion. We have seen so many ideas, possible ideas, typical plans, typical mistakes for both sides and so on, move orders. So it is necessary to know all these things, but it is, of course, very good and in high level, absolutely necessary to also know concrete theory in the Najdorf. Yes, very good, especially in some very tactical variations. So here the move f4 was played. You can call this situation number 2, although, of course, there are exceptions. Which continuation do we expect to see by black? Although it is definitely not the only one and not forced, but which continuation do we expect to see with black? Very good. We expect to see e takes f4, followed by knight c6 sooner or later. This is what we expect to see. Indeed, this is what happened. But of course, chess is huge. Chess is endless. There are other lines as well. Black can play here as well. There is even this move, I believe, b5. And after this, black goes here. On one hand, black will reach what we call the perfect Najdorf setup with bishop b7, knight bd7, and a weak e4 pawn. However, he had to lose 2 tempi to achieve that. Yes, instead of going bishop b7, he went bishop e6, bishop c8, and then bishop b7, right? Everything has a cost. So the most common move is e takes f4, bishop takes f4, and knight c6 played by Ivanchuk. Now there are 2 main moves for white. Queen e2, which is even more common. The idea is to play h3. For the moment, white cannot castle long because of bishop g4. The idea is to play h3 and castle long and g. And he wants to develop fast and put the rook against our queen. Another playable move is queen d2. This is also playable and interesting. So queen e2 was played. And now there are a few moves for black. Rook c8 is in fact a very interesting and clever move order. It's not only about ideas, though, especially in the Najdorf. I repeat that it is good and useful to know some concrete theory as well. As expected, white goes h3. And here, the most common move has always been bishop e7, or let's say knight e5, and soon bishop e7 and so on. However, I really like Ivanchuk's idea here, which is this move g6. This is a high-level move, g6. The idea is not bishop g7 all the time. This move is good based on some tactics. Let's see, g6. Of course, sometimes black can go bishop g7, but this is not so simple because the d6 pawn will be weak. So the real idea of g6 can be seen after g4, but it can also be seen after this move. Who knows the theory here? This variation is analyzed by me from black's point of view in my analysis in the Najdorf. So it's not necessary, of course, to play the Najdorf or to remember everything. So the move is knight h5 here. That's another reason why we play h6. And after this, there is a very surprising move by black. Who knows it? Black will play this wonderful, powerful move, knight g3. White has to take it, and the queen comes to g5 with check, and queen takes g3, and black is already better. The queen will be nicely centralized here on e5, and then we will play bishop g7 and so on. Very good. So after g6, white played g4, a move that makes sense. However, now black has this fantastic, very nice move. Which type of position are we studying? Opposite color bishops, very nice, opposite castling with e takes f4. This very, very basic, very important type of position in the Najdorf with opposite castling, which you can get it by several move orders. So h5 was played by Ivanchuk. We immediately study the best possibly form, the best way for black to handle these positions, because after the more or less forced move g5 and now knight d7, black has cleverly passed his pawn to h5, and as a result, white is not able to open the king side anymore. His typical idea, imagine after we castle, h4, h5 doesn't work anymore because black's pawn is on h5. So white castle short, and bishop e7 was played because the g5 pawn is hanging. Yes, this is another very good move. This knight usually goes to e5 because the other knight has a very nice square here in order to jump to these squares. Knight c to e5. And now, of course, every Najdorf player knows that there is a big positional threat for black here. If, for example, white plays this move, this is completely out of the question. How should black continue in this position without any fear, without any doubt, and without any hesitation? Black, very good, of course you all know it, will definitely sacrifice on c3. This is a positional sacrifice. It doesn't win by force, it doesn't lose by force. However, after taking, there is always tremendous compensation. We will play here. Unfortunately, our dream would have been to put the bishop here. I don't think we can do that for now. Unfortunately, we need to play here for now, and then castle, for example, after this. I don't know, calculation has started, if we can consider this move, for example, or even this move, or we can just castle, ready to transfer the knight here, and of course, ready to bring the other knight to these squares. Black has very good compensation. Very good. So we were not expecting from an attacking player, attacking genius like Shirov to allow this sacrifice on c3. Of course, after this, queen e3 has to be played. And the game goes on. So Ivanchuk played bishop e7, threatening the pawn on g5, and rook g1. And finally, knight c to e5, threatening to take on c3. In fact, already black has a very satisfactory position. White played knight d5, and we take it. And he took with the rook. If we take with the e-pawn, so let's clarify something, please. In the whole battle, black anyway standing very well because he has passed his pawn on h5. However, there is a smaller battle among the big battle, which is to be able to put this bishop in the long diagonal. If black can do this, then he will win the game for sure, because the bishop is tremendously powerful in this open diagonal and much less strong here. So, castling short, some engine, no other human, may consider this move bishop f8. Shall we consider, okay, I don't know if this is possible here. Of course, this is obviously a very risky move. It has to be calculated. It is, of course, totally meaningful. But we must be careful. We must not be naive when we play such a move. We must make sure that we can continue the plan. So instead, black will castle short. And for example, h4, he will quickly put his rook on e8. And the idea, of course, look, you cannot play the game with this bishop here forever. This bishop is not going anywhere from e7, while from g7 it is super powerful. So bishop f8 is the move. For example, king b1 and bishop g7 with very powerful play for black. Imagine if this was here, white would have a clear plan to play h5, most likely not h6, but to take on h6 and slowly combine defense with some attack along the h file. But black has passed his pawn here. Another important point to note is that this knight from here cannot really go anywhere unless it is a sacrifice. Yes, so this is very important. Look, all the squares of this knight forward are very well controlled by pawns, each and every one of them. f5, e6, c6, b5. This means effectively that the knight on d4 looks good, but it doesn't really do much. Very good. So rook c4, I think black at some moment should unpin his rook, and he has good play, very good. Let's see what happened in the game. After bishop take, white took with the rook. Yes, this appears to be good, but again, black is in fact better. He has very nice counter attack. And one problem for white is the misplaced knight on b3. White would very much like this knight to be here, to be able to go to d5 real quick. So black castles and h4 was played. Knight b6 is the typical idea. Should we play b5? Here is the question. I will tell you. Here is an important principle. So, of course, b5 should be calculated and it can be interesting. However, in principle, and if you cannot really decide, you should base your play in principles of the game. So in principle, in such open and very active positions like this one, pawn play tends to be very slow by both sides. White doesn't even have pawn play, but in general, pawn play tends to be very slow. Imagine going b5, intending here, and b4, and a5, and a4. This tends to be very slow. What is far more important is active piece play. So we keep that in mind, although we play chess with calculations. We need these principles to see if they agree with our calculation and with our choices. And then this is just, as I like to say, one more verbal argument. The chess principles are nothing more than a verbal argument to support our decision or to be against our decision, and then we may need to change our mind. Yes, this is the chess principle. So knight to b6, he went back, knight c4. Of course, black has never forgotten the plan to improve his bishop, to put it on g7. We can safely say that if this was here, black has a winning game. He has a very, very powerful attack. But of course, it's a long way for this bishop to go to g7. So let's see what happened. Bishop h3, and white goes, black goes rook c6. Let's see. And queen b6. You see, the great Ivan Juk feels the principles very well. He doesn't attack with pawns. He doesn't play b5. He plays this move, which is a lot more effective. developing the pieces. He is ready to move the rook, and later, if he has the time, to put the bishop here. And look, he's targeting this pawn. If this knight moves, there is checkmate in one move. So this is what matters even more. Additionally, some very important strategical element in chess is to find a comparatively stable square for the queen. The queen steps firmly on b6 for a few moves, not forever, but you see, there is no piece that can effectively threaten our queen on b6. He doesn't want to play this because it will capture the bishop. So it will take too much time for a black piece to threaten the queen, or for a white piece. For example, here, which is even an illogical move, and bishop g3 and bishop f2. In the meanwhile, black will develop his pieces. So let's see what happened. c3 was played so that the white queen is protecting the pawn on b2. And black played rook e8. So the idea of this move is that this is the most useful square for the rook since it cannot go here. And of course, black knows very well that he cannot. Look, you cannot play chess with the bishop on e7. Black should at least try to improve it. Imagine if this bishop stays here forever, then black will be playing and playing and playing the whole game without this bishop. Yes? So rook e8 is the idea. Of course, we have to be careful of not this move. Of course, the bishop cannot go there, but of combinations concerning this move. For example, if he takes it, for now, we can take with a knight and stop bishop d7, but we need to be careful. So knight d4 was played because there is no checkmate anymore, and rook c5, black is provoking b4, white is not going to play b4. He played b3, let's see, knight a3 after calculation here, and bishop f8. This amazing player understands the need to put the bishop on g7, and he uses all the tactics in order to achieve it. Indeed, what is happening after king takes a3? Let's see, who can see what is happening after king takes a3? Is it something with the bishop on f8 targeting the king on a3? The answer is no. There is this move, check. And if he takes with the pawn, it is checkmate in one move. And if he takes with the queen, then rook takes here and check. And this is going to be a checkmate pretty soon. Very good. So knight a3 here, bishop f8. He takes it. Knight c4 check. This is very strong. And knight takes e5. Only Ivanchuk can do this. He had a knight on a3, and this knight immediately appeared on e5. And additionally, of course, his bishop is very ready to go to g7. If you consider all these factors, plus the fact that the knight from d4 cannot become really attacking because all the squares forward are very well controlled, it shows that black is much better. He played bishop g7, very good. Black has a big advantage. Here he played this move, which may not be necessary, but still there is a lot of compensation. And later the game was a draw. Black could have played this very precise move in order to put the bishop on e5 and protect everything, and then move the knight to c5 and so on, while at the same time keeping the queens on the board. This, according to the engine, would have given an advantage to black. Anyway, in the end, the game was a draw. Let's examine, what am I doing? Let's examine several more games. So here we are. We are studying one of the most typical and important positions of opposite castling in the Najdorf with e5. So in this game, not f3 or queen d2, but h3 was played. After h3, black can play bishop e7 or knight b d7. He played bishop e7. Very good. Can black play h5? What do you think about this move? Can black play h5 here? What do you think? Is something wrong with this move, or is it a good move? I will tell you. This move, although it appears to be quite normal, in fact, it is a mistake, not a huge one, but a mistake. Now, if White knows very well what he is doing, he should switch to a bishop e2 and short castling Najdorf. And in that case, the pawn on h5 is not really helpful at all. It can become a target. Yes. So White should switch to bishop e2. One may argue, but what if White only knows long castling variations? That's why we say that you must have some general knowledge also from other ideas, other ways to play the opening and so on. You should not only focus on this little line that you are playing and the rest of the world doesn't exist. No, you should have general chess culture, and you will get that by studying many games or a few games if you don't have the time, a few games also in other positions a bit similar to the one that you played. Very good. So bishop e7 was played and f4. I would call this situation number 2. So the main move, we are half developed with the bishop on e6. So we expect to see this move and knight c6 again, indeed. White plays queen e2 now, and by using this move order, Black has lost the ideas with an early g6 and knight h5. In order to get to these ideas, we should put this one back and play rook c8 instead. So anyway, knight e5 was played, castles threatening to take the knight, and knight f to d7. This is another typical position. Black wants to play rook c8, castle short, and so on. There is very interesting play. So knight d4 was played, but Black is really not worried about knight takes e6. He plays rook c8. Pay attention to these details. Rook c8 is a useful move, and at the same time, of course, we all know that he's threatening to take on c3. So he plays here and he wants to force his opponent to play some slightly strange move, some defensive move, and so on. White played knight b5. I don't really like this move. If somebody asks, what is Black's main idea in this position? Of course, we threaten to take on c3, but after White defends against this threat, let's say by queen e3, for example. What is our main idea? Black wants to castle, maybe play b5 if he doesn't have anything else. And don't forget the small battle in between the big battle. We want to safely transfer the bishop to this diagonal. The whole analysis, the whole play very much involves around this idea. Okay, let's play bishop f6. No, without blundering. So here the move knight d5 was played, and now Black is happy. He happily takes the knight on d5, and after this he castles short. Black is not really afraid. King b1 was played. Black is not really afraid of this move. In worst case, he can play rook e8, and we don't care, of course, let's say, about the pair of bishops here, because we have very active play and fast development. For example, queen takes. Black has great play here. He has nothing to be afraid of. Yes. However, after knight f5, there is even another move, which is this one, bishop g5, because the principle exists 100%. What does the principle say? In positions, we studied this principle in previous lectures, yesterday in particular. When White has played the move e d5, then in general, Black would very much like to trade the dark square bishops. Very good. So let's see what happened. However, if you are not sure after this, for example, bishop g5, and maybe he can play g3, and if you take g takes f4, it can be dangerous, this or that. So we calculate. If we are not sure, after knight f5, we can choose the lazy option, which is to just play rook e8, intending bishop f8, of course. Very good. So in the game, after castling, the move king b1 was played. Let's suppose that white plays g4 instead. Who would like to suggest a move for black? I see several interesting moves. Let's see. So I would like you to tell me one good move for black and one bad move for black, which somebody could play, of course. Yes, one bad move for black is this, but nobody will play it. So one bad move for black that he could possibly play, and one good move for black. Who can do that? Who can find a good bad move? Very good. Very, very good. You all got it. Perfect. Good moves for white for black are this, and especially this, and even rook e8. And bad move for black is this. What if the engine shows that b5 is good? Well, then that's a super exception that the engine can see based on calculation, right? It can happen, yes. We all know how strange chess is and how rich. So bishop g5 is good, and even rook e8, very good. I would probably play bishop here. I know sometimes the engine even likes this move h6, yes? But let's play like humans. So let's see what happened after castling. King b1, now rook e8, developing new pieces. And knight f5, bishop f8 was played, and black has a perfect game. Black is looking for the opportunity to play g6. White played queen f2 and queen f6. We don't like this move yet because, of course, he will play this. White has to play actively and create some problems. Otherwise, look, this is totally wrong. How can you hope that your opponent will play like this? After bishop g7, we can then consider queen b6, or look, knight b6, intending to go here or here. Look at this move, knight a4. How annoying is this? Together with the bishop on g7, we are targeting the pawn on b2. Queen b6 may come, and so on. This can also be very dangerous. However, it won't work, because after g6, our opponent will definitely give this check, otherwise he will be worse without a fight. So black played queen f6, in fact, that's a very high level move, and g4, and now g6. Why did he play queen f6? So that there is no knight h6 anymore. If this is obviously losing a piece. So after this, knight d4 is forced, and finally the battle has been won for black. The bishop goes to g7. He doesn't mind about the queen. The queen can always get back and go to the other side. Very good. So g5 was played, and queen d8, and h4. Indeed, white has some plans of his own, of her own, in fact. Imagine if we could do this without the right for an en passant. So if we could do this with very good temping, then white would be much worse. Yes. Anyway, we are doing very well. Queen b6, you see, active piece play. Look at black's pieces. They are all active. And bishop h3 was played because this bishop is really a problem. Rook c4. If white goes here, this is restricting this knight, but it allows a lot of counterplay. Maybe knight c4 here, for example. Look at black's pieces. Everything is so active, and black is doing great. And another possible move is, of course, this one, intending knight a4. Or remember, just like in positions with short castling, which we have examined, ef4, and we said that there is a lot of play along the e file. All the squares on the e file are potential weaknesses. Let's see what happened. Here, rook c4 and knight c5 finally. And here the queen is pinned, but queen c7. He takes it. Yes, this is not possible, of course, because of knight d3, winning the rook. the bishop. So he takes it, rook takes, and knight c4. Finally, the bishop from g7 reveals its strength. Rook b8, black has to do something fast. Look, active piece play. You see, which move once again becomes completely irrelevant? This move and a5 and so on? No. The position is very active, very energetic. So what matters is active piece play. H takes, but black is comparatively safe because this move will take too much time, and even if it is played, king f8 lasts for some time until black carries on with his attack and wins. Very good. So here, but knight takes b2, and we won the game. Black has only got one question. Did he win the game, or did the bishop from g7 won the whole game by himself? Very good. Let's check another one or two games now. Let's check this one. So this is a slightly strange game coming from a strange move order. So bishop e2 was played. Usually after bishop e2, white doesn't go for long castling, but after g6, they are already, like, they are not out of theory, but they play a very rare line. This g6, bishop g7 is some sort of dragon, but with a pawn on a6. White played g4, but the most common move is this or even this. So g4, b5. Let's see what happens now. g5 here, very strange play out of book, and bishop f3. And here comes an important idea, which we will come across several times, no matter if we want it or not. The idea is here, it is very common, so it will appear several times in our today's study. The idea by black is e5. And when you play e5, you put the pawn on e5 in order to put the knight on e5, as I like to say. You put the pawn on e5, you eliminate f4, and then you put the knight on e5. So here it comes, e5. Besides, remember this principle, remember this verbal argument, which I have said in the past. The moves g6 and e5 in the Najdorf tend to cooperate well together on several occasions, on 100 different occasions. So this is one extra argument. I'm calculating, of course, and then I'm thinking, I'm also adding the argument. Is g6 and e5 bad when they are played together in the Najdorf, or good? What is this fine grandmaster saying? He said they tend to cooperate very well with each other. That's an extra argument. So knight b3, and he takes on f4. Very good. Bishop takes, and we have this nice unclear situation. Knight c6 was played. It's important to develop the piece in the center. This is not really working because of queen takes g5. And so a4 was played. Actually, this a4 is a very double-edged move, because after that, it's not so easy for white to castle either side. But after b4, white saw this idea. And now the bishop cannot go to g7 so easily, because white will play bishop takes d6. This is not possible because of this already threatening check and so on. So white is thinking, but this pawn is under threat. You cannot go bishop e7 because I will capture this valuable bishop. You cannot play here. And if you play this, the b4 pawn is hanging. And if you play here, intending to go knight c to e5 and then bishop g7 and castle short, this is taking too long. However, black had a magnificent idea in his mind. Since white is overexpanded, black decides to sacrifice a pawn. He plays knight c to e5 right away. That's a fantastic move. White played bishop e2. And now black can even take the knight on d5. But even better, he plays bishop g7. Look, super high level chess. Now, in fact, after this is hanging. Queen d2 was played, and black continues in the same style, and he castles. He keeps on sacrificing this pawn on b4 in order to gain time. White took it, and now bishop takes d5, e takes d5, and black has tremendous compensation in this position. Black is most likely going to, white is going to castle short, but black has tremendous compensation. He played knight b6. Let's see. He has to castle, and rook b8 with a very powerful attack combined with a bishop on g7. Remember, the battle that has been won. Bishop takes c5, that's a sad necessity, but the knights were coming to c4. For example, after this, even this is hanging, or maybe knight e to c4. Look, targeting these pieces here, the rook happily comes to e8, and the extra pawn for white doesn't matter at all. So he took here, bishop takes, and now this is hanging. So here, queen happily takes the g5 pawn, and then knight takes here, and knight f6 was played, and black has a very powerful initiative thanks to this bishop on e5. Let's see what happened here. Queen h4 and knight e4 was the idea. Black has the advantage. He's threatening knight f2. And after this, another great idea by black. You see, when you have active pieces, you can find all sorts of combinations. This nice idea was played because the pawn on b2 was hanging. And after king a2, there is almost queen takes a4 checkmate. Almost, because there is a queen on c6. But this is giving us a very clear idea of how to continue. Let's see, how should black play, of course. Black should play rook b6, very good. And here, white resigned. That's a fantastic game. And black found this wonderful move, rook b6. He wasn't lucky. The good moves were all the previous ones, yes, which led to this position. Very good. Safe. Okay, let's check another game now. Let's check this one. So again, in the same very important version of opposite castling in the Najdorf, lines with e takes f4. Half of the games are in this style with one move order or the other, several possible move orders. So here, bishop e6 is playable but risky. There are other better moves instead of bishop e6 here, because this f4 can be annoying. After f4, black's position is playable, but he has to play this slightly unusual move, and then things change a bit, but it is playable. However, in this game, you see, we are now in no situation, right? We are actually in this half situation with the bishop on e6, but after taking, which was the move that was played in the game, white has won an important tempo. Normally in the theory, we would have this position, and after here, f4 takes f4, bishop takes f4. But here, white develops in one move, and this is important. So knight c6 was played, and queen d2, very good. Black played bishop e7. The normal theory is d5. He played bishop, but d5, but with an extra tempo for black. Anyway, bishop e7 was played, white castles, and knight e5. So in this position, black's tempi are far better, and even the queen is better placed on d2 rather than on e2. So let's put it here right from the start. Well, in the normal theory, there is a very fast d6 to d5 for black, and things are different. Black is standing very well. So queen d2 and knight d4. White got this typical position, but what is the difference? He is several tempi ahead. Several tempi ahead. For example, queen c7 was played, for example, the bishop cannot go here now. And after knight f to d7, there are no such lines like bishop here and so on. White can continue with g4, and after castling long, he can even play g5. And look, it will take too long for this bishop to go to the diagonal. Let's say he goes here, king b1, or maybe even just h4 right away. And White's attack is quite fast. We should not underestimate White's attack, of course, because we will be checkmated. So queen c7 was played. Let's clarify one thing. This doubling of the pawns is almost always very bad for White. Black stands perfectly in all these positions, no matter if we have castled short or long, or both players have castled short, or the queens have been exchanged. In all the versions, Black stands perfectly with these pawns, unless somebody can win these pawns right away, or unless White could have played this move without dropping the bishop and put it here, and then the e6 pawn is constantly under threat. So Black stands perfectly. Black's problem is not this doubling of the pawn. Black has other problems. For example, knight f5. How could White ever get to this f5 so fast? Because he had several extra tempi. One tempo was bishop takes f4 in one move, and the other tempo was that White managed to put his queen on d2, and Black should probably play d5. These are the mistakes that Black did in the game. A fast e takes f4, which is losing a tempo, and after queen d2, even with a tempo down, he should probably play here in this position. Black played queen d2. Black should probably again play d5, like in the normal theory, which is this one, because we lost the tempo. Even here, Black should probably play d5. These are two mistakes. And as a result of these mistakes, which are the two mistakes are 1, 2, these two tempi. Very good. So after taking an e takes f5, White is much better. The mistakes are subtle, and our study is a subtle study of deep ideas. So White castles, Black castles, and g4. This is a completely winning position for White. Let's see what happened. Rook f to c8, but it's too late to give advices. g5. Look, the knight proudly comes to d5. And whatever we have said so far about these positions, nothing is working here. h4 was played, and queen takes f4. This is, of course, a lost position for Black. White's attack is super powerful. f6. Here, king b1. g6, but h5 is coming. And look at this poor bishop on f8. The dreams did not come true. Here and c3. This is probably the best move, but the position is still completely lost. And White won after a few moves. This game clearly shows to us that we must also consider concrete theory and not only typical ideas, of course. Let's look at one or two more games in this line. So again, a win for Black. Let's see. Rook c8, h3, g6, a very nice idea, although our study is not about theory. Look, there won't be any open h file in this game because Black passed his pawn on h5. His pawn is not on h7. So castles, bishop e7 for now, queen e3, knight c to e5 typically, king b1, and Black castles. Black is hoping one day to put the bishop on g7. Rook h2 was played, and rook e8. Don't forget to develop the pieces. This rook e8 is a wonderful move because the rook is active on the e file, and because long term we want to do this. So rook e8, as the quote says, one quote which I like very much, says, help your pieces so they can help you, right? If you help this bishop, to go to g7, it will help you. If you don't help him and you leave him here, it cannot help you either. So queen g3 was played and bishop f8. Black is close to play bishop g7. Rook f2, queen c7, protecting the pawn. And bishop a3 was played. If knight d5, we will happily take it. And e d5, this is coming here with a winning position for black, or let's say a huge advantage, because the knight, for many, many reasons, the bishop on f1 is not good. Our bishop on g7 is a monster. We passed our pawn on h5. The knight on d4 cannot help with the attack. It is only targeting squares backwards. And black will attack with his pieces. And when and if this attack comes to an end, then he will start pushing his A and B pawns. Why is he doing that? Why doesn't he attack with pawns? Because the attack with pawns tends to be very slow, and the position effective but very slow, and the position is very open and very active. So what matters is piece activity. For example, imagine if we had this position and somebody is thinking, should I play b5 now or rook c8? Oh, but what is rook c8? The c2 pawn is very well protected. What should I do? I cannot decide. You should refer to the principles, which say develop your pieces, especially in very open positions. Most likely, this is going to be the best. Very good. Okay, so let's see what happened in the game. Bishop e3, knight b6, which is the typical idea. The knight went to c4. Here, black happily exchanges, and he puts the bishop on g7. Let's see, c3. And yes, b5 now. Look, our pieces are already standing in very good positions. They are all developed. Every piece has moved. And we must play b5. Now, if you would ask me, if this was here for some reason, and you would ask me what to play now, in this particular position, I wouldn't play rook c8, because he has a pawn on c3, and our rook is not active there on c8. I wouldn't like to spend a tempo. So in this particular position, I would probably play b5 and a5, and then b4, because this pawn on c3 is offering a target to open files. So indeed, this is an exception. I would have played b5 here, which makes more sense than rook on c8. Very good. So b5, knight a1, and here. So anyway, black has a big advantage. I'm not sure about this move, but then again, this bishop is equally good with ours. So it has been exchanged, and here some activity and so on. Black managed to win this game. Very good. So I would like to check two more games. One is the game, just a second. One is the game, where is it? Carlsen Nakamura. We have seen this game in the past as part of typical ideas. That's a very important and instructive game. So bishop e7, let's see what happened now. We will see it with different eyes. White plays bishop e3. When the opponent plays bishop e3, you have to play bishop e6. Yes, bishop e6 is not a hobby. Bishop e6 is the best move. We have to play it. And Nakamura here, such a great player, instead of playing bishop e6, castled. He didn't know this very basic idea. No, a bit rare idea, but I knew it when the game was played in 2011. And of course, Carlsen knew it. G4 now becomes very effective. And after bishop e6, g5, knight f to d7, we can already see that black has arranged his knights in a very strange way. This has to go to b6, or imagine going here. This is not how we develop our knights in the Najdorf, yes? First time I see these knights like this. First time, so to speak. So black's knights are really not standing well, and white is better. This is enough reason for white to have an advantage. Let's see what happened. Here, queen d2, knight a to d7. In order for black to avoid a clumsy knight c6 move, he had to move his knights again and again several times to arrange them in a good way. But now white is better. He played f4, e takes f4, bishop takes f4, knight e5, and castles. How about this knight c4? This is nothing special. White can even play here if he wants. He can survive among the knights, but most likely he's going to capture, and after knight takes, he can even put the queen here. Please note the fact that the bishop is very, very far away from being put in the long diagonal. So let's see what happened. Rook c8 was played. King b1. Carlsen is a super high-level strategical player, and he wants to play all the useful typical moves whenever he has the chance. Black played queen c7, and now it's the moment to play h5. What is the idea behind h5? At some moment to play g6. Typically, in the Najdorf, in the Scheveningen Sicilians, whenever you play here, whenever white plays here, he is trying to open lines, but at the same time, he offers the f6 square for the black bishop or for the black knight if black had the knight on d7 typically. So this g6 makes sense, but it offers immediately some defenses. Carlsen plays h5, and then he will see whether he will play g6 at a good moment or h6 or continue with play in the center. So rook e8, king a1, wow, super high level move, stepping away from various tempi, and knight d4, queen c5, some piece play, and finally g6 after consideration, and queen d3. Look at this bishop on f8. It cannot go to the long diagonal. So here h6, yes. And of course, the best player in the world is playing with the white pieces. He has calculated so many tremendous variations. He won a great game, which you will study when you receive the PGA. Let us also study this game where white was better at first. Let's see. So e5, bishop e6, yes, h3, and f4. We are studying the long opposite castling with f4, e takes f4 for now. So they got to this position, castles. This queen c7 move was maybe a bit premature. How to deal with bishop takes e5 when the queen was here? Knight f to d7 and rook c8. This was the mistake for white, for black. It was premature. And now white has some advantage, as it seems, because, for example, our bishop will take too long to go to g7. However, black plays rook e8. These are good moves. Black is unfortunately very fast with his attack. He played queen g2, maybe not the best. Knight b6, you see, good players play typical moves whenever it is possible. Of course, one of them will win, but they still play typical moves. h5. Now, it's pointless for black to go bishop f8 and g6 and so on. Black must try to attack with the pieces, knight there, b5, a5, and so on, do whatever he wants. And why does he leave his bishop on e7? This is prophylactic thinking, so that in case of g6, if you put it here and white plays g6, you cannot activate it. In case of g6, black may consider the important bishop f6 move in order to defend and attack at the same time. That's the idea of leaving the bishop to e7. So a5 is interesting. And this move, according to the engine, is 2 question marks. This move is giving the advantage to white. White should have played a4. He played g6. This is a miscalculation, misevaluation of the position. And finally, black wins this important battle of putting the bishop to f6 for both defensive and attacking purposes. Here, and king h8. h6, knight g6, a wonderful move attacking this pawn on b2. Look at this pawn on b2. It fell because somebody allowed the bishop to go to the diagonal. Look at this bishop now winning the game by himself, literally. This bishop on g7. So this happened, queen takes c4, and finally the bishop was exchanged, but queen takes c2. Black gave this nice checkmate. Very good. So it is about time now to change subject. I wanted us to try now to study a Scheveningen setups with opposite castling, coming from so many different variations. So e6, we are not studying theory, we are studying opposite castling, but with Scheveningen setup. So here, b5 and a3. This is a Scheveningen setup completely out of book. Black has played the opening very well, and he is already standing slightly better because white allowed all these moves and he played all these simple development. He played a3 and f3. Already black is better. This bishop e2 move doesn't work well with white's intended long castling, and black plays bishop e7, very good. White decides to castle long. We are now studying exclusively Scheveningen setups with opposite castling. Black has a very good position because he has very good tempi, and because white's play was very slow. a3, which is slow. f3, you can say it's typical. Bishop e2, which is very slow. Two moves which are very slow. Rook c8, and look, there is no time for black to play any passive move. He has to play typical moves the whole time. He played knight e5. According to the engine, an even better move would have been knight to b6, and after g4, knight f to d7. The idea is to go here and knight c4. But you said this is not dangerous. No, in the previous position, this was not dangerous. Now, this is very good. Is black going to castle short? Yes, he is, but for the moment, he doesn't really need it. His king is quite safe on e8, and so he can play other moves. So knight e5 is also acceptable. I will show you another move, an entirely different idea, which is very double-edged and also interesting for black. It's this move, h5. Remember, this h5 move is not like h5 in this Najdorf, d6, e5, and bishop e6. Imagine this kind of Najdorf, yes, like with the bishop on e6 here. We are not talking about this kind of h5, which is totally normal and an entirely different story. We are talking about this h5 here, which is stopping g4 for quite some time, but is weakening our position. If we play h5, we will stay in the center for some time. So we are examining now random anti-theoretical play. Finally, black castles. If you ask a very experienced player, who is better here, he will tell you that black is doing very well. How do you know? It has to be this way because I see bishop e2, which is a total waste of time, and a3, which is kind of waste of time, and even the move knight b3, I don't like it. Rook h to g1, white was a low-rated player. Yes, black is a much better player, totally different level. And rook f to d8, his idea is now even to strike in the center with d5. Black doesn't usually have this luxury. This is happening because white didn't play well. After g5 in the Najdorf, we must go either to d7 or to h5. Here, black put the knight on d7, which on one hand, he wants to use it for the attack. On the other hand, it abandons the king side. Strangely enough, this fantastic move would have been the best. But how about f4? Knight c4 is coming anyway. This bishop from e2 will be eliminated. And so the knight is quite safe on h5 after f4, knight c4, and b takes c4. And when we take with the b pawn in such positions, very soon we will turn our attention to the b file. This is a very common idea. Now d5 is the best according to the engine, opening up the position, and after this, closing the position. Black has a very big advantage. This is coming here with a strong attack. Fortunately, white doesn't have any attack at all. Okay, black won the game later. Let's check another game in Scheveningen opposite castling, but with random play for white, like really out of book. So instead of following the main lines with f4 or queen e2 and so on, white played queen d2, which is very, very rare. And soon the game goes out of book. So f4. We are talking now about the Najdorf with bishop g5. That's a very different story than the Najdorf with bishop e3, for example. This position with bishop e3 or with bishop f5 is very different, or with bishop g5. So bishop e2 and b5, black is already doing very well. Bishop f3, having some threats, but this is coming with tempo. And knight a4. If knight c to e2, now it appears as if white is threatening e5 and queen takes b4. But if we see more carefully, queen takes b4 is not really a threat because black will play d5 after white takes on b4, threatening the queen. So this gives us the right to play bishop b7, and black is doing very well. Black is much better. d5 with tempo, and then d4 is coming. Very good. There had to be a way for black to have the advantage because white has played some non-standard moves. So knight a4 was played, and bishop b7. Black is better in this position because there are a few non-standard moves played by white. The queen on d2 is not a standard place for the queen. The knight on a4 is a very risky move, and bishop e2, bishop f3 is a bit slow, while if you have a look at black's moves, they are all typical moves. So here, and rook b8, according to the engine, this would have been even better, rook to c8. So here, b3. Anyway, black has a great game. This is why black is playing the Najdorf on the first place. He is always very happy to get such anti-theoretical positions with a lot of play. Black has achieved his dream. He's even better, but that's, let's say, that's another story. Even if we call this position unclear with chances for both sides, this is exactly what black is hoping for when he's playing the Najdorf. This is what he's hoping objectively to get. So h6 is a very good move because if here knight takes c4 and there is not enough compensation. Look, here, let's say g3, bishop f6, there is not any compensation. So h6 is a very clever move because it forces this move, and bishop takes. Black has the advantage and the game goes on. He played such nice moves. And g6. And bishop takes on e5. So black was better in this anti-theoretical battle. Let us now check some even greater game, much greater game. Let's check this game between Michael Adams and Garry Kasparov, played 20 years ago in 2005. Let's see what happened. Michael Adams is, of course, a super high-level player. Not as good as Kasparov, but then again, nobody is as good as Kasparov. So Kasparov would play both e6 and e5, and even knight g4 here. He was an expert in all the lines with both colors. He played this Scheveningen setup. bishop e2 was played, and queen c7. Let's see. Queen d2 and b5. So we get this aggressive setup. a3 and bishop b7 again, and f3. Very good. Black plays knight c6. This move makes sense, and knight bd7 also makes sense. Knight c6 in order to counter this knight on d4. White castles, let's see, and b4. This is the idea that Kasparov had in mind, possibly following his analysis already. So a takes b4 and knight takes b4. This knight is close to the opponent king. Of course, the position is interesting and unclear. At some moment after bishop e7, look, somebody is thinking, should I play knight d7 here or bishop e7? Let's better play bishop e7, which is development. You never know. And if it is black to move again here, we can just castle short. Here it is much safer to castle short. So g5, knight h5 is not possible. The knight has to go here. And at some moment, the modern engines would give to white a big advantage. But believe me, during the game, especially in one aggressive Sicilian, this has exactly zero value. Not close to zero, exactly zero value. The position is very interesting and complicated. There is no plus 0.60 here based on some line, some continuation of 10, 12 moves that the computer has in mind, and you must all the time play all the best moves without making the slightest mistake. This is not possible in the Sicilian. It has almost never happened. So although the engine gives, at some moment, I don't even remember, some advantage to white, practically this doesn't mean absolutely anything. The position is unclear with chances for both sides. So h4 was played and knight c5. Around this point, somebody should play here because you should not leave to Kasparov ideas like not even the slightest idea of such a move. So he steps away from all these ideas. And rook b8 targeting the king. Let's see. h5, white is carrying an attack of his own. But then again, black knows that in case of g6, which move will we see most likely after a g6 move? It is almost certain. Which move do we expect to see by Kasparov when this pawn arrives here? We are almost certainly going to see which move, please? Who will suggest? Almost certainly we are going to see bishop f6. Almost certainly. Yes, that's the meaning of the bishop on e7. So finally, black castles. During the game, how was Kasparov thinking? Was he saying, oh, this position is much better for me, I will win, I have calculated everything? Was he saying, oh, this position is much worse for me, I am losing, or I am winning? I bet he was saying, I am going to. I don't know what this position is. It appears to be unclear, but I am going to win. This is what he was saying. So g6 was played, and yes, this is the move that we intend to see. Some nice type of equilibrium. He plays g6, opening up the g file, and black protects his g7 pawn in the open g file. So the rook goes here, and bishop a8. This move, bishop a8, is super important. Look at this move, bishop a8. Black is in big need to target the pawn on b2. So this is very important. He played here. Of course, if this pawn is hanging or not hanging, nobody really cares. Black doesn't care to lose it. White doesn't care to win it. So let's see what happened. Bishop g5 was played. That's another typical idea intending to exchange the bishop, but this is not really a good move. And as it seems, Kasparov has calculated that. Bishop e5 is very strong. And now if white goes f4, there are several combinations, but he the bishop from g5 is shut off. So g takes h7, and look, Kasparov takes it. Such a great player he is. He doesn't play these typical moves without thinking. He took here because he felt that the king is safer on h7 rather than on h8. Knight b3. Needless to say, of course, that after this, he will play g6. Let me add it here. So knight b3 was played. Black is threatening such moves here and finally attacking the pawn on b2. So knight b3 was played, but Kasparov had then this fantastic combination. And although it appears as if white will win a pawn, he has this nice idea here. And queen takes c5. White had seen knight a4, intending to capture the knight. But look what he didn't see. Kasparov was an attacking genius, and he had seen this amazing move in advance. And now if knight takes c5, this is checkmate in one move. Rook takes b2. So king b1 was played, and queen a3, and he resigned the game. That was a fantastic performance. I'm guessing that after a move like rook c1, he will play here and check. That was a fantastic game by Kasparov against this super grandmaster. Very good. We are clarifying things while studying all the important elements of this position. Here, bishop g5 again. Let's see, e6 was played. Queen f3. This is a bit more rare move. It's kind of a fashion lately. White first wants to play queen f3 and castle long, and then move the queen again, and finally play f4. Usually white plays, of course, f4 before moving the queen. So here, and h6 is a very interesting move by black. White went back to d2. If he takes here, black will feel very happy in this endgame. So black is better in this endgame. Bishop d2 was played, and queen b6. This is in the style of the poisoned pawn. The idea is, in this particular position, he forces the knight to retreat to b3, and only now he goes to c7. Look at this very high-level move, which you can play it in positions that are out of book. In theoretical positions, it is definitely already known. But look, instead of learn by this amazing idea, instead of going queen c7, for example, if you compare this move, now the knight has a strong influence in the game by standing on d4. He is using the moment to play this move. Now white has no other move. He has to go back, and now queen c7. And now, whenever white thinks of going back here at any moment, let's say right now, black has won a very important tempo. So white castles and knight bd7, intending b5 with very good play. g4 was played, and b5, black stands really very well. He has the advantage. a3 and bishop b7. A common idea after a3 is this move, but I would say that this is not so good with the bishop on d2. The bishop is here now, controlling this square. So let's better develop the pieces with bishop b7. White played bishop g2. Now, we will deal with this move a lot. In these Scheveningen positions with opposite castling, the move bishop g2, played early in the game or a bit later like here, is almost always a mistake for white. I repeat, in Scheveningen structures with opposite castling, the move bishop g2 for white is almost always a mistake. Why? Mainly because it abandons this square. This square, the c4 square, should be under control by white. So bishop g2 is almost always a mistake. Black plays rook c8, adding energy and threatening this. Look, this is pure joy. When you can do that in chess, you should do it. How about this and collecting this pawn? No, then you will come across a strong attack. Look, if here, not f3, f4, what are you going to do now? h5 is only move, look, because I'm threatening h3. This is only move. Look how terribly black has played. His knight is out of play, and now this becomes super meaningful. For example, after e5, yes, white opens up the position to his advantage. Look, we should definitely avoid knight e5 here. So I'm thinking, should I play here? No, there is nothing better than developing with tempo. Rook c8, adding energy. Queen e2 was played, and here comes a fantastic, uninspired move by black. Black is helped by the fact that he has a pawn on h6, and so this is not possible. And he strikes in the center with d5. How about this move? This is a typical idea, but it's unnecessary here. So this fantastic move d5 was played, and knight takes d5, and knight b6. Black stands really very well. The center has opened, and so black is not afraid of a flank attack with h4 anymore. So here, bishop e7. Let's see. Black controls everything. No sacrifices are working. And this is, I dare say, a winning position for black, or a much better endgame. So this is what happened, and black won later in this very fine game. He won the endgame. Let's check another example. So let's check this one. Just a second. Wait. Where is it? Just a second. Okay, this one. Caruana Karyakin, a bleach game. So let's see what happens. h3, e6. It is playable, but e5 is a better move. So g4, knight c6 is playable here for black, and even b5 is playable. So knight c6 was played, and bishop g2. Is bishop g2 a mistake? No, of course not. But white should better castle. Here he has a problem. He shouldn't castle short, and he shouldn't castle long. Let's say his position is not so satisfactory. Let's say that white must castle long, but know exactly the theory. Here he lost very easily. Let's see what happened. Castles, castles, and knight takes d4, and bishop takes d4. Okay, this is a theoretical position of the past, but black stands really very well. He plays b5. According to concrete analysis, he doesn't even need to be prepared against white's e5 move. Indeed, white played e5. He has to do something. And there comes d5. This is some sort of very improved French defense for black. Very improved. So f4 was played, and this is very powerful. Objectively, white must sacrifice here and create some complications here with unclear play. White must definitely do that. This, for example, is a totally wrong move. I see queen a5 threatening the pawn on a2, and white cannot even play a3. So the move knight a4 was played, which is also bad. It was much preferable to sacrifice on d5, because after this, black is very fast. With his attack, he is threatening bishop c6. And after b3, this is coming. White must lose tempi. He played here. And of course, a5 using the hook on b3. f5 and a4, knight d3. What if he plays here? Okay, we will tolerate this move, but if you think about it, here, there is really not any attack for white, right? So f6 is just an illusion. So knight d3 was played, and this is simply a winning position for black with a very powerful attack. Queen a5 is coming, already direct threats begin, and that was a really fantastic game. Sometimes, very rarely, Caruana can play such bad games. Look what happened now. Bishop e3, because if he takes it, it's checkmate, queen takes a2. And after this, too many threats have gathered. Bishop takes d3, and that's a forced checkmate. If queen takes, then queen takes a2. And if rook takes, then check and check on a2. This clearly shows, of course, it's only a bleach game, but it clearly shows what can happen if somebody plays without knowing the theory. Let's try another version of the Scheveningen with opposite castling. So knight c6 was played, and queen b6, this is very nice idea. Knight b3, and only now e6, we have this Scheveningen setup. Bishop e3, queen c7, white must go for long castling, but with the bishop on f1. She played bishop g2, that's a bad move, because it abandons the c4 square. Bishop e7 was played, and queen d2. At least in this position, white must now go somehow for short castling. He should play here, controlling all the squares, and go for short castling, although black still has very good counterplay. So in the game, queen d2 was played, and black castles, but I think it was about time to go knight e5. We can clearly see the side effects of this bishop g2 move. So anyway, after queen d2, black castled, white castles. Again, knight e5 is the move for black, but she played b5, and finally f4. And there is another idea for black here, which is working very well, exactly because there is this bishop on g2. It's this idea, knight d7, h4, white plays an attacking move, and knight b6, putting these knights there, knight d7, knight b6, intending quite often knight c4, of course, but even knight a4. Look at this nice, elegant move, knight a4. So this is possible, and even quite fast, because white has played this bishop g2 move too early. So here, black jumps knight c4, and g5 was played. Black knows one thing: if this pawn comes here, there is always this bishop f6 idea. So rook e8 was played. This is a bit slow. It was better to attack with b4 and a5 and a4 with a super powerful initiative for black. For example, here a4, and here b3 right away. Let's suppose that we were a bit slower and white manages to play this move. Like I play this random move, for example, and white manages to play this move. Are we getting checkmated? No, not really. Even here, we can defend for some time and, of course, counterattack on the other side. The move will be bishop d8. And after this, rook e8. It's not ideal for black, but this is the last line of defense. You see, we are not checkmated automatically, and there is play on the other side. Very good. So this is what happened, rook e8 and bishop b7. Black slowed down a bit. King b1, and finally she took this bishop, and rook c8. This is a little bit slow. Here, b4 finally, and a5, and g6. Of course, the typical bishop f6 resource. Here, sometimes black takes with the king. It is dangerous, of course. Everything is dangerous in the Najdorf. And a4, and knight a5, strong play, strong calculation, and later black managed to win the game. Very good. In this totally unclear position where you can never be sure that you are winning. Let us check a nice game by Anish Giri. He is playing against Grandmaster Farukh Monatov from Tajikistan. Let's see. Here, knight f to d7 is another playable move. So bishop e3, and here g5, an early g5 move is the right, and h4 is the right way for white to play. without bishop g2, play this position. So here, h4, here, a3, this is basic theory with the bishop on f1 for now. So knight c6 was played, here threatening to take on e6, castles, and he castles. That's a very complicated position. Let's clarify, please, that it's not only about calculating and playing on general grounds. Here, it is certain that Anish Giri, especially Anish Giri, knows some concrete theory as well. According to the engine, black is better here already with several moves, because, for example, this queen h5 move slows down white's attack quite seriously. So black plays here in order to play b3, and white played bishop h3. For example, if black plays here, yes, white will retreat queen c7. However, the knight on b3 doesn't take part in the attack anymore. And let's say after f4, black should definitely play b4. Takes and knight takes, and now a tremendous battle is going on, but it seems that black is doing very well. He will continue with this kind of stuff because there is not even knight b5, it's a checkmate on c2. Very good. So Anish Giri played this very nice unique move. Bishop h3, now it's about calculation, so b4 and knight takes, let's see, and knight c5, threats are gathered. He's threatening to take this one. Bishop f5, very energetic, but it wasn't enough. What if he plays f3? I cannot tell for sure what he has calculated. Black must possibly, let's say, play this move in order to eliminate this knight and target the a2 square, because we are interested for a very fast attack. So here, but this move was found, and black won this game in the complications. Very good. So these are some of the very basic main ideas in the lines with opposite castling. Let's check one other game real quick. So here another line, you can call it Najdorf with bishop g5, but now we are examining here under the Scheveningen setup version. We are not even examining concrete theory. So king b1 was played and bishop d7, black has good play. And bishop g3, rook f to d8, black wants to continue, he is at least equal with such moves. First, let's develop the pieces, and at a good moment, he will also try to add this move. Black played d5, but we are now talking about concrete theory here. Black has done his homework, and this is a very good position for black according to concrete theory. White's attack is very slow. He tries with g4, black eliminates this bishop, and knight d5. According to the engine, this is the best move with tremendous combinations. Tremendous complications. I don't even want to get into it. Knight d5 is a more human move, and f6, very well played, and this check here, and strong play in the center has prevailed once again, rather than a flank attack. Very good. So they played here, yes, and black suddenly won this game very easily after finding this nice idea. So nothing, of course, is to be memorized out of these variations. We just studied two very typical ideas. There are more in the next lecture. Two very, very typical types of position with all, of course, the details in between, which are countless. Castling long, but with e takes f4. In the classical Najdorf with d6, e5, very, very common. And the Scheveningen setup, which is also very, very common with all the possible mistakes like bishop g2 for white, or being forced to play knight b3 after a queen b6 move, and so on. Very good. We will now take another break for half an hour, and we will continue attacking the white king who has castled long after 30 minutes.